Bonasek to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Gianaris to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can think of no better display of how ill-conceived this bill is in the debate we've just listened to. We had a member refuse to take questions. We had a suggestion that more data might change the bill, yet the bill continues to be voted on. I mean, I don't know why we'd want to vote on a bill where there's essentially an admission that we don't have all the information at our disposal to make an informed judgment. I heard my colleagues just explain their votes, and I'd like to comment on some of the issues that were raised. I heard a colleague say that this whole issue exists because we need more time for the military voters to get their ballots. That is absolutely correct and is at the forefront of all our thoughts. So why not give them more time to receive their ballots and vote? Why not give them 2 extra months to get their ballot? Well, one of our colleagues said hopefully the ballots will make it back in time. Well, we don't have to say hopefully if we move it back 2 months and give them plenty of time to receive, fill out, and mail back their ballots. And I just heard someone incredulously say voters are losing confidence. I'll spare my colleagues the deduction I'm drawing that Senator Bonasek thinks Donald Trump is inspiring voters to vote. But I will point out that voters are losing confidence. They're fed up because the system is rigged, and this is yet another example of it. We're trying to move the primary to a date when no one's going to be voting. How much more rigged can you get than that? Or maybe we want to draw the districts in a way that make no sense, so people's votes don't matter. Or maybe we want to not let them vote early enough so that they have to cram it into one day so fewer people vote. You want to talk about what other states have done? Other states that have early voting have seen voter participation rates rise dramatically. So if we really care about people voting, let's make it easier to vote. There's ways to deal with fraud, and there's no evidence that fraud is actually existing in any of the states that have taken these reform measures. So let's be serious. We know the Assembly's not passing this. Yes, it is a one-house bill that's not going anywhere. Because, how do we know that? Because this has been going on for years, and we've been wasting hundreds of millions of dollars of the state taxpayers' money, having multiple elections. This year, we're having 4. So I've heard no logical reason why August is better than June. I've heard plenty of reasons why August is worse than June. Let's be serious about this, fix it, and let more people vote in this state.
Senator Gianaris to be recorded in the negative. Senator Krueger to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also am fairly appalled at the arguments being made for this date. It is clear we should do a bill to combine our primaries into one date. Everyone knows that. We should tie it into the exact type of election reforms that my colleagues have proposed to make life easier for voters, to make sure voters have more time to vote, to make sure our military abroad have more time to vote with a June primary, to make sure people can register more easily, and to show the people of New York that we're very serious about trying to get this done. Last year, the excuses for why we couldn't do a June date were another set of ridiculous arguments. I'll refer my clients back to their arguments last year why they couldn't support a June single date for primary. They're different arguments, just as weak as the arguments being made for this bill. We should do one primary in June. One of the reasons why a one-house bill is a problem right now, we are so close to the dates of actual petitioning if we don't have a June state primary while we move forward with the federal. This needs to happen now. We need to make the right decision for the people of New York now. We need to do a June primary for both federal and state and move on legislation immediately. I vote no, Mr. President.
Senator Krueger to be recorded in the negative. Senator Rivera to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Most of my colleagues have already made most of these points. I will reiterate a couple and add one at the end. Number one, to suggest that our objection to this bill means that we do not care about men and women in uniform is incorrect. We do care about our men and women in uniform. Matter of fact, not only do we thank them for their service, but just as Senator Gianaris said, there are changes that we could make to make it easier on folks to be able to meet the deadline so that they can vote, because absolutely, they certainly defend our right to have even this debate. So we want to make sure that they can vote. Number two, there's plenty of evidence that demonstrates that the changes that we make in law can actually make it harder or easier for people to vote. And that When we look, matter of fact, I would suggest that you look at a great book called Why People Don't Vote by Francis Fox Piven and Jeremy Cloward from 1976, 1977, which goes into great length at discussing the ways that we can change government, that government can change policy to actually make it for people harder or easier to vote. So we can create barriers or we can remove barriers. This is creating a barrier. And last, and I'm sorry that Senator Bonachik left, because I believe that there's something that he said that must be corrected. Voting is not a privilege. Voting is a right. There's a difference between a civil liberty and a civil right. Civil liberty constrains government action. Civil right compels government action. And we have seen way too many things in this country in its history, and the actions that have to be taken by government to ensure that people have access to the ballot, to call it a privilege. So I want to make sure that we're correct about that. This bill is a wrong-headed approach at trying to get more people to vote, wrong-headed approach to fix a problem that we have as far as primaries. I'll vote in the negative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rivera to be recorded in the negative. Senator Hoylman to explain his vote. Senator Hoylman passes. Senator Little to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this bill is to accommodate the military. And the reason that we had to change it from September was because there may not be enough weeks for a military person to get the ballot and to get it back on time. Believe me, our military, our men and women who are serving our country are doing so that we all have the right to vote, and this is important to help them have the right to vote. I say that knowing from experience, since my own son is deployed, and he is serving in the Mideast. He's been there since November, will be there until June, and is on the Harry Truman carrier as a naval aviator. But the point is, we may be very interested in politics, and we may be really working and knowing who the candidates are. When you're in the military and you're serving and you're deployed, to have a primary that's going to be in June for an election that's going to take place in August is somewhat ridiculous. Having that primary, all we are doing is moving it up a few weeks from when it has traditionally been in September, so that it is 10 weeks before Election Day. It gives a person, whether they're interested in politics or not, gives them time to know who the candidates are and to really make a good vote in a primary. So not only giving them the chance to vote, but not moving it so far ahead that they have no idea who the candidate is. And when you talk about going on vacation, it's easy. You just do an absentee ballot, and then you can go on your vacation. So I vote aye, and I appreciate this bill being before us. I thank the sponsor for it, and it is all about concern for our military men and women. Thank you.
Senator Little to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Hassel-Thompson, explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to Senator Gustavo Rivera made the correction that I needed to make, and I felt compelled to make, but I want to reiterate that. We behave in this chambers and in government as though it's a special privilege that we endow the people of the state of New York with the right to vote. That is not only absurd, but it is legally incorrect. And we need to stop saying it. We need to stop pretending in that vein, because when we do, we make people think that it is not accessible to everybody. Voting is and must remain accessible to the people of the state of New York. It is not availability, it's accessibility. And while I have a great appreciation for what we're attempting to do on behalf of our military, I believe that there is also a preponderance of people who are not in the military who will be adversely affected by the dates that we have chosen. If it has been suggested that if we put our heads together and come up with a date that is less arbitrary and meets a standard that makes some sense, and there are several bills around, by the way, that already have done that. In case in point, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins' bill, then I would suggest that we are then closer to assuming that we all want the same thing. I don't get the impression when it is made clear that there are flaws, serious flaws in the bills that we do or that we present in this room, and that there are solutions that would make it a better bill, that we failed to acknowledge that because of political considerations. I think that that's more appalling than the fact that my colleague accused us of taking a poor shot. It's not a poor shot. It is poor government and policy development to present something that does not statistically make sense, that does not empirically make sense, and therefore it does not meet the standard of what is called common sense. Mr. President, I will continue to vote no on this bill.
Senator
Thank
Hansel
you.
Thompson to be recorded in the negative. Senator Panapinto to explain his.
The last time I looked, 14 was, not close to a majority of 50 states. And, New York should not be amongst Kansas, Arkansas, North Carolina, Alaska, Missouri, and Tennessee to have August primaries. Those are not the states that the Empire State should be in competition with to do a primary. So this is a silly piece of legislation. June is the time we should have it. That will increase voter turnout. August will not do that. I vote in the negative.
Senator Panapinto to be recorded in the negative. Senator Larkin to explain his vote.
I've been listening to this for a couple of years. I don't think there's anybody in this chamber here was back here when it was in June. And it was in June because your party wanted to get the summer free. If we had it in September, you'd have to do all the primaries, you'd have to be out there getting petitions and everything else, and we moved it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about the men in the armed forces, not talking about somebody on 3rd Street or 4th Street. If you think somebody commanding a combat unit in Afghanistan this morning could hear us, they would say, what in the hell are they talking about? Those of us who've been in combat, I can remember my latest in Korea. You think in August, March, April, or May 1950, I was worried about my ass and 208 other enlisted men. And now we're talking about we got them time, we got them base here. I don't ever remember somebody even talking to me in the election of 1950 about primaries, about this and about that. And guess what? I didn't care either. But I worried about your son or your daughter, your loved one, to make sure that they were there and protected. And we're playing games with this. This is our armed forces. Get off of our back and sit down and get this thing straightened out, because you're talking about those men and women who stick up for you every day. They raised their hand and said, I willingly defend this country. I will fight for it. And now they come here and see us in Albany. Aren't we great? Now, somebody said, we've done this a couple of years. I told you what they did before any of you were here. We made it so that New York City would be very happy because they didn't have to do any primaries or petitions when we finish session in June. Ladies and gentlemen, put those men and women in harm's way in your right eye, your right ear, and think about how do we do this and get it out and stop playing tiddlywinks.
Senator Larkin to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Latimer to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. To explain my vote, I have great respect for those who serve in the military. My nephew, Jonathan Pingello, serves as we speak in the Middle East, member of the U.S. Army Reserve. I'm not sure where he is. I hope he's in a safe place. My nephew, who at the very day of his birth, I was standing there with my sister and my brother-in-law. I was there the day he was baptized. And he's a brave young man to volunteer to go to serve his nation, as other brave men, as Colonel Larkin has, as James Sanders has. And I asked Jonathan Pingello, and I asked him, I said, what would it mean to you? And he said, look, the earlier the better. The earlier the better. So June is earlier than August. We have great respect for the men and the women who have made sacrifice for this nation. No one person, no one party owns patriotism. No one person, no one philosophy owns love of country. Those of us who believe that this can be done in June are saying the exact same things, that there should be the opportunity for our men and women, brave, to be able to cast their right to vote. And it makes more sense to have them do it earlier in the year rather than later. Now, I respect those who've served, and I respect my nephew as well.
Senator Latimer to be recorded in the negative. Senator Sanders to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually tried to stay out of this debate. My father served in World War II, several uncles also. My older brother served Vietnam era Marines. I am post-Vietnam era Marine grunt. My younger brother was 82nd Airborne. He started going wrong. My nephew, 3 tours Iraq, 1 tour Afghanistan, 1 tour DMZ, and going. My friends, if we could really allow everybody in here to be viewed as a patriot, if we could avoid taking one issue and saying that this is the only issue that there is to be a patriot, can we assume that everybody in here is here because we love this country and we want to do the best for it? If we could do that, then we will have served our armed forces the best way. We will give the freedoms that they're fighting for and that we are, in one sense, fighting for also. If we can avoid the wrapping ourselves in a flag over an issue and just allow that the other person believes also. If we could do that, then we can avoid you got to be with this issue or else you're some type of whatever that's not patriotic. So that's really my position, and that's my explaining of my vote. I understand the position that the other side is going with. I differ with it, but I understand it. Doesn't mean that you're not a patriot. It means that you're a good patriot. You stood up for what you believed in and said it. I commend you for it. I vote no on it, however.
Senator Sanders to be recorded in the negative. Senator Young to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was interesting for me to hear my colleague, Senator Squadron, talk about one-house bills and his concern about one-house bills, because I wonder how many one-house bills he's introduced. I also have heard this word, I'm appalled, thrown around today several times. I think what's appalling here today is that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to have campaigns and elections during a time of the year when we are elected to do the people's business. We are elected to pass the state budget. We are elected to pass bills that are going to do things that are important for the people of this state, whether it's to fund our schools and education so that our children have a brighter future, whether it's to grow jobs in the state, whether it's to give our hardworking, overburdened taxpayers more relief. That's what we should focus on January through June, not campaigns and elections. I want to thank and commend my colleague, Senator Akshar, for his leadership in bringing this issue forward. It makes common sense to have this primary in August when we're away from session, when we can focus on other things, and we can have the people have the right to vote at a time when they're accessible, and more importantly, it won't be a time when we're taken away from them doing the people's business. So thank you, Senator Akshar, for your concern about veterans. Thank you for your concern for the taxpayers of New York State. Thank you for your concern for doing the right thing. Thank you for your concern to be willing to listen to people who have differing viewpoints. That's very important too, and that says a lot about who you are, not only as a legislator and a person. I vote aye.
Senator Young to be recorded in the affirmative. Is there any other explanation of votes? Then the chair will allow Senator Akshar, as the sponsor, to make his final explanation of vote.
Mr. President, thank you. I enjoyed the robust dialogue today. It's not my intention as suggested, to pass a one-house bill. And I look forward to working with my colleagues in the Assembly and the Governor to start saving our municipalities money. Those who wear the uniform of this great country and serve with distinction deserve to be treated fairly. And when it comes to voting, this allows them to exercise their right without delay. We heard a little bit about public confidence in this body. So I would make the argument that in the effort to restore the public's confidence in us, we need to ensure that we draw a very distinct line between campaigning and legislative activities. The people of this great state expect us to be here doing their work between January and June. We heard a little bit about the weather. It's hot in August to pass petitions. I would suggest to my colleagues they got in their car or truck and drove to the North Country in March, where it's cold and there's 3, 4, and 5 feet of snow. Heard about availability of polling places. Well, my friends, schools are closed in August. We use schools all the time, and I would suggest that it'd be much easier for folks to get into schools to use them as polling places. Again, it's a fair treatment for military personnel. It saves our hardworking taxpayers money, and it establishes a very clear separation between the political season and the legislative process. Mr. President, I vote aye.
Senator Akshar votes in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 155, those recorded in the negative are Senators Addabbo, Breslin, Comrie, DeLon, Espaillat, Felder, Gianaris, Hamilton, Hassel-Thompson, Hoylman, Kennedy, Kruger, Latimer, Montgomery, Panapinto, Parker, Peralta, Perkins, Persaud, Rivera, Sanders, Savino, Serrano, Squadron, Stavisky, and Stewart-Cousins. Absent from voting, Senators Diaz and Hannan. Ayes 34, nays 26.
Bill is passed. Senator DeFrancisco.
Yes, I'd just like you to recognize that this is Senator Akshar's first bill, and I've been here for many, many years. I've never seen a harder bill fought for as your first bill ever in the New York State Senate. Congratulations.
Senator DeFrancisco.
May we return to motions and resolutions?
May I have some order in the House, please? We will return to motions and resolutions.
Well, I don't know if it's either, but Senator Hamilton has requested the opportunity to recognize a group of students.
Senator Hamilton.
The resolution was presented by Senator Marty Golden, so I will let him defer to him to speak first. You already spoke? So I'm here today, Senator Hamilton, to recognize the occupational therapist from Downstate College and its 50th anniversary. Can you please stand up so everybody can see who you are? All right. Yeah. SUNY Downstate's Medical Center College of Health-Related Professions is celebrating its 50th anniversary, opening in fall of 1966, along with the Downstate's nursing program. Initially enrolled 20 students, 3 in physical therapy, 4 in occupational therapy. The program curriculum requires 81.5 credits, taking 2.5 years of study. The curriculum is composed of integrated courses sequences such as health science, occupational therapy foundations, occupational therapy practice, and research, theory, and application. Occupational therapy in general helps children to develop the underlying skills necessary for learning and performing specific tasks, but it also addresses social and behavioral skills. It can help with a child's self-concept and confidence. Pediatric occupational therapy helps children develop the basic sensory awareness and motor skills needed for motor development, learning, and behavior. And I want to thank Alethea Aline for bringing the class down here today, and God bless you all for doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you, Senator Hamilton. Thank you, Senator Hamilton. They have been acknowledged. We appreciate that. You're welcome into the chamber, and we extend the courtesies of the House to you.
And the senators have asked that you come down to the floor and to take a photo.
If you would come down to the floor, the senators will be available to meet and greet you. Senator Hamilton, thank you.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business before the desk.
There being none, Then I move to adjourn until Monday, March 7th at 3 p.m., intervening days being legislative days.
On motion, the Senate will stand adjourned until Monday, March 7th at 3 p.m. with intervening days being legislative days. The Senate stands adjourned.